Welcome to Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. I'm Clyde, one of the Dharma teachers, of the 6 Dharma teachers that are here. To take a moment to kind of look around, I think we have 17 people, 18 people in, and at least almost 30 people here. So that's a pretty good Sangha tonight. So tonight, we're starting our spring series. And our spring series is on Dharma practices for challenging issues. And so tonight and for the next 3 weeks, we'll be going over these. And next week, we'll be doing relationships. The week after that, we'll be doing environment. And then after that, we'll be doing money. So tonight, I thought I would pick a pretty easy topic. I'm doing politics. So this is a very challenging talk about a challenging issue. It was interesting, so I'm not sure how I ended up with this one, but I do. So, and you can define politics any way you want. But I'm going to start out with a couple of caveats. And this is the first one is from Jack Kornfield. He says the benefits of the Dharma are universal. It doesn't choose parties or politics. It offers a path for well-being individually and collectively. The Dharma is apolitical. It's just the way things are. So that's the first thing we're talking about. That's the Dharma. I was actually, during the meditation, I was thinking about what would be the answer to all of our issues. Would be like we all became enlightened. Then that would be the ultimate issue. But we're not there. We're in the world. The second thing I wanted to say is that that this talk reflects my understanding of the Dharma and my use of the Dharma to support me when I'm dealing with politics. So it's how do I maintain my equanimity in dealing with this particular issue. Yours may be different. You may not agree with some of the things I say. You may think, well, this doesn't work, or he needs to do more, or I'm doing this or that. That's perfectly okay. Everybody's different, and everybody and this is why it's important. It's one thing about the Dharma. You need to take it and use it. You need to investigate it, work with it. What works for you? What resonates with you? What can support you in your daily life? So that's what I want to say. We each have to do this. So let's start looking at this. This is like I said, this is kind of like it's kind of a personal talk. This is the way I look at things. And so first thing I looked at was sometimes it seems like, and we think we get a bad rep that all we're doing is sitting here and we're sitting on the cushion, we're thinking our thoughts or meditation, and I'm going to get enlightened, and I don't let the rest of the world go. Let everybody else do what they want to do. It's kind of like a real internal focus is what we think, and we think people say, well, that's not good enough, and sure enough, it's not. But if we listen to and I think about that sometimes, spend the time meditating and studying this. But is it, what are we really doing? So I asked some very important people, very smart people smarter than me. Jack Kornfield, he says, do not believe that meditation and contemplation are the fulfillment of the Buddhist path. Inner peace, freedom, and joy develop only when paired with the outer teachings of virtue, respect, and mutual care. The foundation of Dharma is relational, built on generosity, virtue, and loving kindness. Dharma is relational, in relation with other people. I asked someone else. Gandhi explains it this way. Those who say spirituality has nothing to do with politics do not know what spirituality means. And then Thich Nhat Hanh says this. during the mid-60s. When I was in Vietnam, so many of our villages were being bombed. Along with my monastic brothers and sisters, I had to decide what to do. Should we continue to practice in our monasteries, or should we leave the meditation halls in order to help people who were suffering under the bombs? After careful reflection, we decided to do both. To go out and help people and to do so in mindfulness. We called it engaged Buddhism. Mindfulness must be engaged. Once there is seeing, there must be acting. We must be aware of the real problems of the world. Then, with mindfulness, we will know what to do and what not to do to be helpful. Ask someone else. Martin Luther King says, as long as there's poverty in the world, I can never be totally rich. As long as people are afflicted with debilitating diseases, I can never be totally healthy. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And in 2024, Bhikkhu Bodhi wrote this in Buddhist Ethics for a World in Crisis. Looking at national and global issues from a standpoint of a Buddhist conscience, we must make the effort to see the deep and hidden webs of causation that lie behind this suffering. Then we must try to find ways to alleviate that suffering effectively and decisively, in a spirit and with means that best accord with the Dharma. I'm going to say that again. In a spirit and with means that best accord with the Dharma. If you can't take anything else away tonight, remember that. He goes on to say, this applies particularly when suffering emerges from oppressive and exploitive social, economic, and political systems. And he goes on to say how these systems create things, and we need to be aware of that. He says that people are suffering that we don't see, that we don't know the faces of, that we don't know their names, but we're still responsible for alleviating the suffering. And then David Loy, who was a Buddhist activist, he's been here, he says, our practice and our social engagement need each other. Without responsible engagement by people committed to spiritual practice, the U.S. and the world situation will continue to deteriorate, causing more people to suffer. So, if I'm a person that says I'm on this path, that I'm practicing, if I profess to be on this path, I have a responsibility to help alleviate the suffering of others. Because we just heard from some very important people that say that's what we should be doing. And I think I'm going to keep repeating this, in a spirit and with the means that best accord with the Dharma. So I started looking at that, and I'm like, well, what for me would be some of those things that, what Dharma teachings do I want to be in accord with this? And there's a lot of them. And so I'm going to look at, first thing I'm going to do is I want to look at the big ones. There's 4 big ones that I kind of use these as my guidepost when I was looking at this. What I'm going to, there's a lot to fall back on, but these are the ones I kind of wanted to go with. The first one, we don't talk about it very much in here, but it's this idea of conditionality. That everything is conditioned, all phenomena, everything in here is conditioned. You're in here based on causes and conditions. Causes and conditions came together for you to be here. And it's like when this happens, then this will happen. If this doesn't happen, this won't happen. So everything is conditioned. Causes and condition is constantly happening for things to be the way they are right now. And that's what Bhikkhu Bodhi was saying. We want to go and say, what are these causes and conditions? What are they? But one part of it I look at first is that this is what's happening. Causes and conditions are causing these things to be created. The second thing, Dharma teaching, that is very important that we talk about a lot in here is this idea of impermanence. That things arise, they're causing it to come up, they arise, they're here for a little bit, and they pass away. Now, some things don't always pass away quite as quick as I would like for them to. All right? That's true. But they will eventually pass away. I like history. I read a lot of history. I like learning about history and things, and that's the history of history is impermanence. You look at all the great civilizations that have been around. Where are they now? Everything arises and passes away. So we have to kind of I have to keep a lot of things in perspective, a broad perspective. It helps me, and here again, these are things that are going to help me. It helps me see things in perspective. My friend Gandhi says, when I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love has always won. Yes, there have been murderers and tyrants, and for a time they can seem invincible. But in the end, they always fall. Think of it always. Impermanence also helps me develop patience, and patience is something that really we develop for this. Because the things I don't like don't go away when I want them to. I've got to be patient. And that goes from the car in front of me getting in my way to governments. They're all impermanent. The third thing, which is a biggie, are the three defilements. Ward talked about these a couple of weeks ago. Greed, hatred, and delusion. These are things. They're called the three poisons. These are the things. When I talked about the conditionality, like these causes and conditions, these are some of those causes. These are the causes of the way things are. And for me, I see greed in politics. There's always been greed in politics. If you go back to the history of the United States, there's always been greed. But I see it more and more now, greed. And I have to look at it in the standpoint, our culture is based on greed, consumerism. The more we do, the more we get. We want more, more, more. We've created this. This reflects our consumerism. This creates greed in our society. That's one of the things that's causing this. And the Buddha talked about this. He says in Dingna Nikaya, and Bhikkhu Bodhi has a book of the teaching, the social and communal harmony. How do we live in harmony? But one of the devas asked the Buddha, says, beings wish to live without hate, hostility, or enmity. They wish to live in peace, yet they live in hate, harming one another, hostile and as enemies. And the Buddha said, yes, and he said it's because of envy and miserliness. Then he goes on even further later on to say, what is that? That's brought on by craving. This is the second noble truth. If I crave, I've got it. If I got a hold of it, I'm miserly, I'm going to hold on to it. If you have it, I envy you and I want it. And that's the cause of this hate. That's what's causing that. The second noble truth is causing us to live in hate and not live in peace. And the Guttaranta Nikaya, someone asks, why do people fight? And he says, lust for sensual pleasures, that's that greed, the lust, and bondage to views. The aesthetics were fighting because they hold on to views. So there's a reason why this is happening. These causes are out there. The fourth one is the thing that gives me agency, and that's the law of karma. If I act with wholesome intentions, and karma is this volitional intention, a volitional action. So there's that thing there of this intention. What's my intention behind my action? If my intention is based on greed, hatred, and delusion, I'm going to create more suffering. I'm going to be living in hate with other people. If my intention is wholesome, eventually that will come to fruition. It may not come through when I want it to. It may happen, it may not even happen in this lifetime if you believe that. But the idea that I believe that karma is working and based on intention, if I act with wholesome intentions, eventually whatever I do will, something beneficial will come out of that. So this an example a very spiritual example of that is the walk for peace that the monks did from Texas. That did that. To me, that was just, they were just walking. They didn't know political, but they planted so many wholesome seeds that eventually, sometime, that will come to fruition. And I believe that this idea of the karma gives me agency. So these causes and conditions, I can begin to influence those. So, and that all sounds really good. We got all this, now we have this Dharma, we got these Mark Dharma teaching everything, but what happens? You get up in the morning, you read the headline news, and what happens? Anger arises. So this talk is about, the rest of the talk is about how do I manage my anger when I see this happen. And that's me. That's my politics. That's what I do. That's what happens. So these are some of kind of the day-to-day things that I do, using these Dharma teachings as kind of the overall perspective. I like to guard my senses, and what that means is that I do limit the amount of news I get. I have to limit that. I have to say I can only get so much. I look at the headline news in the morning, what's going on. I don't delve down into it. I don't have to know all the things that are going on. I don't know who did this or who said that. I personally don't need that, but I want to know what's going on. I know what's going on, but I guard the senses. What do? It's social media. I limit that. Even friends, sometimes when I'm talking, says for me to sit there and talk with you about this, what is it? Talking to the choir. It doesn't do any good. What it leads to is this idea of rumination, this papancha that's going on and on and on, and that's not useful for me. That's a waste of for me. That's not a good use. I'm not one of these that can watch the news and then go to sleep at night. I can't do that. That's me. So I have to manage that. It's better that I get a good night's sleep, so whatever I do the next day, I'm doing it healthy and wholesome, versus having stayed up all night ruminating over this. So I guard those senses, that in what's coming in, I have to guard that. I want to be really mindful of the mind states when they arise, and that's that idea in the morning when I see that and I see anger. What do I know? It's greed, hatred, anger, an illusion, ill will. If I see that arise, what's that mind state? Now, I will say, self-righteous anger has a real sweetness to it, but it's still not wholesome. Why don't they listen to me? I know the way. Why can they do this? It's still not wholesome. So I have to be very careful and go, what's that mind state that's arisen? Is it wholesome? Is it unwholesome? Because that's going to impact those actions and that karma. What's the motive? When you're doing something political, in a political sphere, what's that mind state? What's that mind state? What's going on? We should ask ourselves that all the time. And the reason I do this is because a lot of times I can see where I'm creating my own suffering. My mind get down that mind state goes down through there, and I start spending time doing that. I go, I'm just creating suffering for myself. So I check out what's that mind state. And it's this that leads to that idea of intention. When I do act, what am I acting out of? Now, I do, and I struggle with this when I was doing this. Anger changes things. It's a motivator sometimes to get things done. And so we have that fine balance. How can I do this? Can I do this to alleviate suffering or and balance injustice? Versus I'm mad at this person for doing it, or mad at this group. I have to work with that constantly. Compassion for others. I'm doing this for compassion. I think there's injustice in the world. I get out and march. But if I'm marching in anger, I have to be real aware I'm just contributing these causes and conditions that are going to create more of what we're doing. We can, like I say, we can influence. That's where we can influence these causes and conditions. The Dhammapada says, Hatred never ends by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This is the ancient and eternal law. Another thing I do, I have to look at real closely is what views am I holding on to? Is it my way? That comes in that delusion of I know the right way. Why aren't they doing it my way? How can they do this? Now, I think it's important to have opinions and views. That's what makes the world go around. I just have to see how hard am I holding on to them. Are they keeping me from interacting with someone else that has views? I need to do more of that. I live in a bubble. I do take part. I take part in marches. I take part in demonstrations. I have a particular friend that wants me to go do all this stuff around voting all the time. And I try to participate in that. I vote. So notice it's important that we are with like-minded people that supports us in our activity, whatever that is, as long as we're doing it. But remember, it's about, are we doing it in a spirit and a means in which accords with the Dharma? I contribute money to candidates that I think support what I think is right. I also contribute to organizations that I think are fighting for justice. I could use my resources in that manner. And voting through the democratic process, supporting that. That's one thing I can do. But here again, I want to do it in the manner this is accord with the Dharma. Am I acting with a wholesome intention? So those are some of the things, the little things that I do. Other things that are there's a couple of things. One thing is that you can support organizations that are doing things that are like supporting the monks they're planting seeds. Bhikkhu Bodhi has this Buddhist Global Relief that's out there helping women in undeveloped countries start businesses, people that are fighting hunger, go work at a food soup kitchen somewhere. Do something. We're putting the wholeness out there to combat what we see as politically not correct. The more we put out there, the more we do, the more we show the Dharma, the more we live the Dharma in our daily lives, the more we're going to start to have an effect on this. That's what I believe. And another thing to do is take care of yourself. Go to nature. Nature, my yard is apolitical. It's hard on me, but I can get out there and it gives me comfort. Go walk in nature. You'll be able to see this is nature. And also, we want to use our mindfulness practice. We want to be mindful the time we're doing this. This is a hard one. This is a great time to work your practice. It's easy to do when things are okay. Everybody agrees. Politics, everything's great. This is the time we can really work our practice and see what mind states are arising, what's happening here, and be able to work with those. So use this as an opportunity. Develop that patience, develop that compassion, develop that mindfulness. So use this time to develop your mindfulness. And hopefully I'm talking too much, but if you have any, we'll be able to see if anybody has anything they would like to say about this. The main thing I want to do is we each do this individually. We each have to decide what works for us. These are some of the things that work for me and how I view this. But the two things that I want to do is do this in the spirit and in a means that support in accordance with the Dharma. And you have to determine what that is for you. Always look at your intention when whatever you're doing, act out of that wholesome intention. Try to make that. That's where we can have an effect on this. It's a long-term thing, but it has to affect these causes and the conditions that are arising and passing away constantly. We can have an effect on that. And the last thing I'll give you what Jeff, we'll go back to Jack Kornfield. He says, "Now a time of change has come. We must listen deeply, bear witness, honor everyone, and choose our actions wisely and courageously. Do not worry if the right action is not yet clear to you. Wait in the unknowing with mindfulness and a clear heart. Soon the right time will come and you will know to stand up. Thank you for your practice.